Greetings ladies and gentlemen. If you are a regular viewer of my channel, you will know that I have a huge appreciation for the Virtual Boy. Nintendo's failed virtual reality platform holds a lot of intrigue for myself. Firstly, due to the fact that the system was only on the market for 1 year in 1995, and secondly because it was never released in my region. Over 20 years later, and a trip to the United States, I finally got my hands on the piece of kit myself. So after investing a significant amount of playtime into the system, I have now played all 22 worldwide releases. So today I am once again going to go where no man has gone before, and I'm going to give my opinion on all 22 Virtual Boy games in one video. So sit back, relax and join me to take a look at all 22 official released Virtual Boy games. Yeah! Teleroboxer is essentially a Punch-Out clone with a rock'em sock'em robot sort of theme. In Teleroboxer, you take control of a robot fighter as you try to win tournaments and become a champion. Like in Punch-Out, you play from a first-person perspective as you have a game of fisticuffs against your opponents. Also, similarly, each robot you face has a unique fighting style, so the game never gets too repetitive. The game can be extremely difficult at times, but with practice, the game does get a lot easier. This game is certainly a solid entry in the Virtual Boy's library, and definitely a must-have title for all VB owners. The first-person perspective also makes this one of the few games that tries to take advantage of the platform's virtual reality gimmick. When I first came across Panic Bomber, I was hoping this was a full-blown Bomberman game for the Virtual Boy. Sadly, this is just a puzzle game starring Bomberman, but I was pleasantly surprised nonetheless with this game's overall quality. The gameplay itself is fairly simple. Basically, blocks fall down from above and it is your job to place them in such a way that at least 3 identical symbols fit next to each other horizontally, vertically or diagonally so that they disappear. There is also a mechanic where bombs fall from the top of the screen, which also adds to the gaming experience. This puzzler plays similar to that of Puyo Puyo, where you play against an opponent in a battle to fill their screen up first. Panic Bomber is a fun little puzzler that is certainly worth a play. Games based on movies are notoriously bad, due to these titles being mostly unfinished corporate cash-ins that are released to coincide with the film's release. So with Waterworld, when you have a game based off one of the biggest Hollywood flops of all time, on one of Nintendo's least successful platforms of all time, a car crash is bloody expected. In this game you sail around in what appears to be the sea, hunting for points by shooting everything else on the screen. I suppose the game is essentially just asteroids, but redder and less interesting. Personally, I think this game is far from great, but it doesn't deserve the hate it gets. Just an average game really, that fits into the ET on Atari bracket. Unwarranted hysteria. Let's look at a Japan exclusive, Virtual Fishing. In this game, like the title suggests, you go fishing. You can choose between various spots and pick between a tournament mode or time attack. In tournament mode, the goal is to catch as many fish as you can within 8 minutes. In time attack, you have to reel in 5 pre-hooked fish as fast as you can, and if the line breaks, you lose. When you get a nibble, the rod will bend. You press R to attempt to hook the fish. This is the real challenge of the game, knowing just when to press R to hook the fish. Sadly though, I was terrible at this game, and lost patience as I never managed to catch a thing. So I do not feel I can truly judge the game very well. So let's move on. From one Japan exclusive to the next, let's look at Space Squash. The game's title may sound like an exciting Japanese space shooter, however the squash part of the title relates to the middle class racket sport known as squash instead. My mother was actually a great squash player back in the day and even played internationally, but that doesn't really relate to this video, so I don't know why I'm talking about it. In Space Squash, your mission is basically to destroy other robots, and you do this by playing a game of tennis to the death, rather than squash itself. The game is okay, but not one that sets the world on fire by any stretch. From one gimmicky tennis game to the next on my list is Mario Tennis. Sadly, the emulator I recorded gameplay footage of this one is glitched out a bit, but I can confirm playing this game on the actual hardware performs bloody dandy. Mario Tennis was the packing game with the North American release of the Virtual Boy platform, so this is the most common Virtual Boy game in existence. This tennis game has tight and responsive controls, which gives you a good deal of control over the type and direction of your shots. This is a decent tennis game for its time. However, if I was to play a Mario Tennis game, the Game Boy Color entry is still the pinnacle of the entire series. Galactic Pinball is the only pinball game for the Virtual Boy. The playing fields are presented in 3D from a first-person perspective and feature various tables named Alien, UFO, Cosmic and Colony. This game is decent and the controls work very well. Each table is nicely done and includes some of the best sounds on the whole Virtual Boy. The only objective of this game is to try and beat your previous high scores, but that doesn't stop this game from being fun and addictive. If you like pinball simulators, you should try this one. Let's look at a US exclusive, Nestor's Funky Bowling. Apparently Nestor was some sort of mascot for Nintendo Power magazine, but I know little about this, as I never read such lowbrow content being a non-US citizen and all. This is a very basic game but delivers exactly what it promises, which is obviously bowling. It isn't bad to be honest. I personally liked how quick the game transitioned in between throws. It made a nice change from the methodical slow pace you get with most modern titles. So, Funky Bowling gets a thumbs up from me. We have looked at the US exclusive bowling game, now let's look at Japan's one, Virtual Bowling. Out of the tiny library of games, why the Virtual Boy needed 2 bowling games is beyond me. It's bloody outrageous really. Speaking of outrageous, this game is amongst the holy grails for Virtual Boy collectors and currently sells for serious money. I'd put the game on par with Nestor I suppose, both fun little games, but paying silly money for this should only be reserved for the OCD lunatics. Time to look at 3D Tetris, the US exclusive Virtual Boy Tetris game. This game is absolutely horrible, and I was personally disgusted by how bad this game was as I tried to play it. Tetris in 3D is a terrible concept to begin with, but Tetris in 3D with red wireframe graphics is just insulting, and the whole thing is difficult to even see properly. The only redeeming feature of this game for me was one of the Tetrominos on the select screen, which looked the spitting image of myself. This gentleman's shape even looks as besmirched as I felt as I played this game. The Japanese instead received V Tetris. This game is much better than its North American counterpart. Why is this game so much better? Because it's just simple traditional Tetris. There is nothing really out of the ordinary to report about this one. However, classic Tetris is a welcome addition to any console library. Speaking of classic ports on the Virtual Boy, another Japan exclusive is the Space Invaders Virtual Collection. This is another outrageously expensive game which is extremely difficult to find out in the wild. The game features a variety of modes, the main one being Virtual 3D. The most significant enhancement from the traditional Space Invaders is the new 3D perspective. Instead of the traditional bird's eye view of the field, in Virtual 3D the view is from behind the laser cannon. This makes it seem like the invaders are bearing down on you, which heightens the tension and is a nice use of the Virtual Boy's 3D capabilities. Ultimately, the game is still just Space Invaders though, so although a lot of fun, I would advise only paying out for this one if you are a millionaire or something. Other than Mario Tennis, Mario Clash is the only other Mario game on the platform. I have done a whole 10-minute video dedicated to this game, which you can click on an annotation to see preceding this video. Mario Clash has more in common with the classic arcade game Mario Brothers than it does any of the side-scrolling entries found on other platforms. You play through a number of stages climbing a tower. Throughout these you jump on Koopas and Mario can turn them into weapons that he can throw at other villains either in front of him or across the way. The higher Mario gets up the tower, the more and varied villains he faces. This is, in my opinion, a very unique game, and it makes a nice change of pace from all of the Mario side-scrolling escapades out there. The game, titled simply Golf, is as expected, a golf game. Sadly, playing this game on an emulator, I struggled to remove the 3D perspective. However, playing the game on my system, it performs fine. I was quite surprised actually on how well this game plays on the simple Virtual Boy platform, and the game isn't that different from Mario Golf on the Nintendo 64 that came out a few years later. The game is just golf. However, I haven't really played enough golf games to measure its quality against others, so I will leave you golf connoisseurs to properly judge this one. From one sport to the next, let's look at Virtual Baseball. I will be honest, I didn't have a bloody clue what I was supposed to be doing in this one. I know absolutely nothing about this weird new world sport, and personally I have little interest in learning about them either. I think I would stick to games about real sports they play all over the world, rather than these weird ones which gets played in small new world enclaves. Give me rugby or a cricket game over this any day of the week. Virtual Lab is a rather odd Japanese exclusive. The game is another puzzler, and I feel this game's Japanese weirdness pairs up with the weirdness of the Virtual Boy hardware perfectly. The game plays like a cross between Tetris and Pipe Dream. Worm pieces falling down from the top of the playing field must be arranged to form completely closed tubes. When all worm pieces on the playing field are removed, the level is completed. Virtual Lab is an amusing puzzle game, but again, like many games on this list, it is very rare, so I wouldn't go out rushing to find a physical copy of this one. Red Alarm is a 3D space shooter, similar to that of Star Fox. There was originally a Star Fox game scheduled for release on the Virtual Boy, and I wonder if the game was renamed and repackaged as this due to a lack of quality. Like in 3D Tetris, the red wireframe graphics make the game extremely hard to play, and half the time you cannot even see if you are flying towards a wall or not. I found this game close to unplayable, so if I was you, I'd just leave this one alone. Vertical Force is a Japanese style space shooter that immediately impressed me. In this vertical top-down shooter, you play on two different planes. In this case, these are above and below. You can freely switch between these two planes whenever you please, and this is required during all of the levels and some boss battles at some points. The game itself isn't very long, but you can change the difficulty and set yourself challenges, and the decent gameplay and music more than make up for that one shortfall. A cheap and fun game that should be in every Virtual Boy owner's library. SD Gundam Dimensional War is a turn-based strategy game and one of the rarest, most desirable games for the whole platform. This Japanese exclusive sadly didn't run very well via emulation, so I was unable to form much of an opinion on this one. When I tracked down a Flash Boy down the line, I'll play it again using actual hardware. However, reportedly, the game is of low quality anyway, so I suspect this is another game for mad collectors only. Insane Mouse Mansion is yet another game exclusive to Japan. The game is the only first-person shooter for the Virtual Boy, and oddly one of the few games you play from a first-person perspective, which is in my opinion should have been how most games should have been designed on the Virtual Boy. The game has a total of 45 levels, and the object of each level is to find the key and the exit before the time runs out. Whilst in theory this game sounds decent, in practice it isn't very good. The controls are pretty bad and the game almost feels like an incomplete homebrew title. Jack Bros is a spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei series and is amongst the strongest entries in the Virtual Boy library. You play the Jack Bros who are out partying on Halloween, the one night of the year they can leave the world of the fairies. Your goal is to make it through 6 stages before a timer reaches 0. Each stage consists of many floors, and in order to clear each floor you must collect all of the keys in order to unlock the door. The game reminds me a lot of the Legend of Zelda games, which many people would consider one of the greatest compliments you could give a game. Jack Bros is a fantastic little gem, which I 100% plan to do a standalone video about in the next few months. On today's list, I thought I would save the very best until last. Do you remember the Wario Land series? The first game in the series was bloody fantastic. Then 2 through 4 were, well, a bit meh I suppose. This was because Nintendo made Wario invincible and messed with a lot of the gameplay mechanics to try and further differentiate the Wario and Mario series. Well, Virtual Boy Wario Land has the same playstyle as the original, but is bigger and badder than ever before. If there was such a thing as a magnum opus, this would be the magnum opus of both the Wario Land series and the Virtual Boy library, both simultaneously. This game is just that good. If this game has any weak points, it would have been that it is just a little bit on the short side. But then again, you can only spend so long looking through that stereoscopical 3D lens on the Virtual Boy anyway, so you can even look at that as a plus as well. So, there you have it ladies and gentlemen, every Virtual Boy game ever made. summarised in one short video. I hope you now feel more culturally enlightened about this sometimes overlooked forgotten library. The system and many of the games really aren't as bad as some certain angry reviewers may have you believe. This micro library is like any other really. It has a fair share of crap, but amongst all of this rough, there is also many diamonds to be found and enjoyed. So if you have yet to jump on the Virtual Boy bandwagon, I hope my video may encourage many of you to try some of these games yourself. There is a lot of fun to be had. Thank you for watching today's video. What is your favourite Virtual Boy game, and what other lists would you like to see me cover on this channel? Please like, comment and subscribe, as I would like to hear all of your input and feedback. Shout outs to Jarrett Tolzien, Mad 8 Productions, Andrew Bazansky, Pizza Dawn, Mike Frost, Edward O'Reilly and all of my other patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. Yeah! If you want to be added to this prestigious list of patrons, then please check out my Patreon page. Ta-ta and farewell.